You see this in virtually every save after a few seasons. Players with bags of potential wasting away in the reserves and B teams of Europe's giants. Well, I'm sick of it. So today, we resurrect their careers. Meet Noah Lemina. He's 24 years old and he's been at PSG for the last 8 years of his career, but in that time has made only 36 league appearances. And what's even worse is that only 11 of them have been starts. He's enjoyed a couple of moderately successful loan moves in Ligue 2 and one statistically excellent spell in Belgium. Since returning to the main PSG fold, he has experienced a few little spells in the first team, but has still spent most of his time playing in the lower divisions with the B team. And last year, his chances at first team football dried up almost entirely, making just a single solitary start. He still has a further 2 years left on his current PSG contract, with an optional extension for the club as well. But it's clear that his agent doesn't have the best interest of his client's actual career in mind. Now to contestant number 2, Kenan Yildiz. After moving to Juventus on a free transfer from Bayern Munich as a teenager, he's now into his 8th season with the old lady. But he has fared even worse, making only 17 appearances for the club over this period and just the one lonely start. Despite impressing out on loan in Austria with Rapid Vienna, followed up with an excellent season in Serie C for the next-gen squad, he's been given almost no opportunity to shine in the first team. And much like Lemina, those sparse opportunities have dried up even more over the past year. It's like the wanderer in the desert, really thirsty, looking for water. In this case, water is football. Hopefully today, we're going to build them an oasis. That's a really bad analogy. We're going to attempt to find both of them the perfect move to kickstart their waning careers. Once that move has been made, we'll be assessing the rest of their careers to decide whether they made the right move by signing with me, or they should have stuck with what they had. Because let's be honest, who in God's green earth would hire me as their agent? I take my agent fees in sausage rolls and Pizza Hut vouchers. When choosing these transfers, we're going to have to consider a number of factors. The amount of playing time the player is likely to get at the new club, the competition for places in that team, the tactical style that the manager likes to play, and whether they would fit into that and find game time. Are the clubs on the up or the down? Lofty European ambitions or potential struggles against relegation? Do they choose to move back home, stay in the current nation, or strike out into the unknown in search of rejuvenating their careers? All that is what we must figure out today. So let's get stuck in. Let's start with our friend Noah Lemina. Now, he's been listed by PSG for £6.5 million, so they're clearly keen to get rid. He was originally listed for £11.5 million at the start of the window, so they've even been willing to drop the amount to try to get rid of him. I think as his agent, my first move is going to be to sit him down and be like, look, mate, if you actually want to play any football, you're going to have to go somewhere and probably take a little bit of a pay cut in order to do so. No one is going to pay you £110,000 a week at this stage. Better to take that cut now, play your football and earn your way back to that kind of money than spending a couple more years languishing in the PSG reserves and then eventually leaving for free and being able to achieve only probably a fraction of that and being 2, maybe even 3 years older. For him, I have identified 3 potential moves and they each have their pros and cons. Starting with Lorient. They're a solid mid-table side in Ligue 1, having come 9th in each of the past 2 seasons. They have a nice little squad with some extremely exciting young players such as El Hadji Mane, who looks like he could be an absolute world beater one day. They are 500 kilometers to the west, so a relocation would probably be necessary. Slight family connection here too, in that Mario Lemina, his older brother, currently of Wolves but formerly of Southampton and Fulham, actually began his senior career in France at Lorient. So it'd be a nice little connection for him to go there as well. I really have pulled out all the stops on details for this, as you can tell. More than I can say for his last agent. Man's been spending his agent fees on caviar-laced jet skis for the last 2 seasons. And unfortunately, under their new manager, they play a 4-4-2 system, which means that he would likely be farmed out into a position that perhaps he's not super comfortable with. Next, I look to Salernitana. Strange choice, I hear you scream, but stay with me. Last year in the save, they were newly promoted to Serie A, but pulled off the insane feat of coming 6th in the league and qualifying for Europe this season under the tutelage of manager Vladimir Weiss. As of this current summer, their max wage is £53,000 a week, which is getting a little bit more towards the area where I would consider a pay cut for Lemina worthwhile to join a club. The big downside is that yet again, much like Lorient, they also play a 4-4-2 system, which would come with the exact same problems. I also looked at newly promoted Premier League Coventry City, though he was unwilling to even enter discussions with them. Clearly, he has not heard that Coventry was recently described as the Riviera of the Midlands. Mallorca and Girona over in Spain were also candidates, but once again, he refused to enter talks with them, despite the fact that those 3 sides could actually all pay more than the sides we've currently looked at. But I guess it's just not all about money for Big Noah. And you know what? I rate that. Keep that attitude when we go up to the club I did choose. So who was that side? Lens. They've been a top 5 side in France in 4 of the last 5 seasons, including last season when they came second in the league and qualified for Champions League football. They're still miles behind PSG, but I mean, who isn't these days? They have signed Serge Gnabry in the summer on a free transfer to play on the right-hand side of the midfield, but that would also leave plenty of room on the left, as well as the fact that Gnabry's contract is only a 1-year deal, so the likely more positions would free up over time as well. His main competition for the left side spot comes from Jesus Diaz, although he too is more comfortable on the right, and of course, Gauthier Ott. Their highest paid player currently is on £64,000 a week, so if they were to be able to stretch just a little bit up to around about 70, I feel like a deal could be done that works for everybody. Lens is only about 200 kilometers north of Paris as well, so it might be a little bit easier as far as relocation and stuff for his family goes. So how does the move work? Once we've settled on the club for the move, I will make the offer and begin the negotiations as manager of the club. If, as I suspect will be the case here, the wage demands are completely out of line with reality, then I will adjust them accordingly. As his agent, I feel like that's advice that I will be able to give him, but I won't mess with things too much, and you'll see it all anyway. Once we have all that information, I will back out and reset, and then make the move using the in-game editor, using the exact same information that we just gathered from the contract talks. This is to prevent the turbulence that happens when I take over the club, sign a player, leave the club, so they end up going through potentially 3 managers in the space of a couple of days. We don't want that. We want it to be nice and seamless, as if the club's just made the move organically. So let's get this man a contract. So now we go to Mr. Lemina. I'll always approach the agent first, just so we can get an idea and might be able to negotiate it downwards even further, but it seems unlikely. So we're going to try and do this. 6.4 million, we know that because that's the release fee. Yeah, see, he still wants between 89 and 110k, which to me is still a bit ridiculous, if I'm honest, given that he doesn't play for PSG. And as a regular starter, that's not too over the top either. So I actually can offer him exactly what he wants because of our wage budget, but I feel like that would be a bit harsh on Lens at the moment. I feel like we can do better than this. I've put in a £15 million relegation release clause, and given they bought him for 6.5, it would still be quite good business. I've knocked it down to 74 here, added in a wage cap clause of 91,000 if he was to get it. I don't think he'll go for this. Oh, I really did not expect him to go for that. I'll be honest, when I was testing stuff, they never went for deals like that. What the hell did I do differently this time? I think that's a solid piece of business. It's still a lot of money, but they are in the Champions League this year, guaranteed group stage spot, so there's going to be lots of money coming their way anyway, and I think a signing as good as him will surely make good money for them in the future anyway. Let's move on to our second client now, Mr. Kenan Yildiz. Now, unlike Noah Lemina, he isn't earning astronomical wages, so that means to me that there's every chance we can find him a really sensible move without us having to interfere with that at all. My first thoughts were for him to head back to Germany and attempt to restart things where it all began, and there were some very suitable teams there. Firstly, Schalke, more than capable of affording wages with their highest paid player being on £69,000 a week. Nice. He would, however, find a large amount of competition for places and would most likely be farmed out wide, as the system they currently use doesn't employ an attacking midfielder, which I feel is his best role, and he can't really be that effective any deeper. But finally, I thought I'd found the perfect side for him. Hertha Berlin. 4th in the league in 2 of the last 3 seasons and qualified for the Champions League. They have enormous financial backing, so the wages and transfer fees will be an absolute breeze. They operate in a 4-2-3-1 DM-AM system, which would be perfect for him to show off his quality. Here comes the big hiccup. At the start of the window, they spent £11 million on signing Vasco Souza, and he just so happens to play the exact role that Kenan Yildiz does, and he's really, really good. Unfortunately, he beats Kenan in virtually every category, minus set pieces and aerial threat. But they do, however, have Alan Velasco, who they dropped a staggering £51 million on in the summer. He was mostly brought in to play on the left-hand side, but he can very comfortably cover the middle, and that could once again limit opportunities for Mr. Yildiz. So the club have actually settled on, and this might be a little bit out of left field, but hear me out, Bologna, about to embark on a 4th consecutive season in Serie A under Alessio Lisci after a brief one-season trip to the second tier. They've already spent big this summer as well to strengthen, signing Ola Solbakken from Nice for £15 million, rising to £17.5 million. Wage-wise, there is plenty of room as well. They have multiple players on close to £50,000 a week or above. His biggest competition for a starting spot is Andre Franco, but at 31, he's unlikely to be getting any better and may have already begun the decline, and that will leave plenty of Kenan Yildiz-shaped holes for him to fill over the coming seasons. And they're actually fairly closely matched already, so it could still be Yildiz time to shine. One of the things I've thought about if I do this again, and if you do want to see more of these, let me know, is to essentially do it earlier in the window so the clubs have less time to actually make signings and that the squads can be a little bit more sensible. The only downside of that is that sometimes the clubs that I'm moving the players from and the players themselves can demand absurd stuff. early in the window that they then won't demand later. So maybe we can find a nice middle ground in there. I don't know. I mean, that is incredibly reasonable, honestly. £3.5 million fine. He's happy to join us by the looks of things, which is good. £29,000 a week to 37, which means he wouldn't even be close to one of the top earners at the club as well. I think this actually could be the perfect move for him. I'm going to get rid of the release clause. We'll leave the relegation release clause, but we'll bump it up to like 8 million because I don't trust them. Hopefully they won't get relegated. If he does get an international appearance, 36.5, which was still lower than the highest end that we were told before, and I feel like it might happen potentially for Turkey, and then a current wage of 27.5 million. I think that suits things down to the ground. Yes, it's a bit of a wage drop for him, but he's still only 24, lots to prove. I think this is the right move for him. Now, you may disagree as well, and I actually would love to know what clubs you might have moved these players to, given the same time, whether it's one of the clubs I actually showed you, or whether it's a different side potentially as well. Now, obviously, you won't know if the player would have actually wanted to go to there, but still. So now that we've reset things, I'm going to make those same moves in the editor, so that way we don't disturb the balances of these clubs. So I've tried to match it as best I can. The only thing that I couldn't seem to find a way to add was his bonus of winning the Coupe de France. So if they do win it, sorry, you've lost out on 200 grand, but I hope you enjoy the move nevertheless, Noah. Okay, so there we go. Managed to mimic his one a lot closer, other than things like the loyalty bonus, but everything else is pretty much bang on in there as well. So now that the moves are complete, let's see how they get on. We're going to sim 5 and then 10 years into the future and then check in on them on the way. Then we're going to compare their careers to the careers they could have had if they'd stayed at their current clubs and I didn't step in and intervene. How much help I'm actually going to be very much remains to be seen. I'm going to look like a melon, aren't I? But anyway, to the future. I'm going to be wearing different clothes because it's going to be a different day. That's fine. Back to the future. So this was going to be a seamless transition. Wash the jumper, come back 2 days later, wear the same clothes. They'll never know. And then I forgot that I got a haircut in between. Apologies for that as well. It seems that today I woke up and my hair has the cooperative nature of a 7-year-old being told to go to bed early. We are now here in the future. Things are bright. Well, I actually don't know if things are bright. For all I know, their careers have been absolute train wrecks, and it's all my fault. So before we get into our first of the steps, the 5-year outlook, I wanted to sort of make a couple of predictions. Bear in mind, I've not seen anything that's happened yet. And in that time, my views have kind of gone from, I think Yildiz is the one that's made the best move by a country mile, to, actually, that was terrible. What were you thinking? So what I think is going to happen is I suspect that Noah Lemina might not get as much football in that first couple of seasons at Lens as we might expect. I'm hoping that he does, but I am a little bit worried that he might get a bit bored there. I'm hoping he flourishes, but you never know. As for Yildiz, he's the one I'm more worried about, particularly as the reason I didn't move him to Hertha was because they'd already got an established player in that role, and then I sort of proceeded to do the exact same thing at Bologna, just with a slightly lower quality player. Now, my theory there was that he would just get game time in that role, but I'm worried that it might not be enough to actually keep him there or in the long term, but we will just have to wait and see. So I'm genuinely really excited about this. Let's jump in to the 5-year outlook and start with Noah Lemina. We're now in 2034. It's June 5th. Let's go find Noah Lemina. Oh, for the love of God, please, Noah. It'd be interesting if he's still at Lens. He is still at Lens. I don't know if that's good or bad, to be honest. Oh, wow. Okay, now he is interestingly asking to leave. Wants to move to a bigger club. Maybe they're just really good in this save. Man has got 11 caps for France, which was honestly what I was hoping that we'd managed to rejuvenate his career. I mean, he's made 100, ignore all the career stats. It's just when they're not your player, you get a lot of bombardment. Let's just go to this. Let's see how he's actually done. 28 appearances, 25 starts. Surprises me. I was not expecting him to get as many starts as that. Slow burner. Didn't particularly do very well, it looks like. Just the 1 goal in all competition, well, in like the league, but the second season. 7 goals in the league, 3 assists, masterful performances from him, a player of the match award. Dropped off a little bit the following season, but still, and then another 7 goals and 6 assists in the one of the most recent seasons. Progression. Unfortunately, we can't really see that without a proper comparison. I'll try to do like a before and after on the screen now so you can see if there has been any attribute development. I suspect with the mentals there will have been some. He has a new contract at Lens here, which presumably removed that colossal international wage bump clause before he got the caps for France, it would seem. That'll be it. Southampton have just come 5th in the Premier League and qualified for the Europa League, so that might be why they're interested. Oh my God. Oh my God, in so many ways. Okay, firstly, Kevin De Bruyne is manager. That's a total side note with a 26% win ratio. A second place, which was the season before he moved. Then 9th in his first year, which would explain his slight drop. Then 5th, 8th, 7th, just sort of on the edges of Europe, actually on a poor run, but it's that. It's the part where they've just been relegated this season. How do you go from that to that? He did manage 26 games in charge of Lens this year, which means he took over around about here. Oh no, Kevin, buddy. I know this isn't about Kevin De Bruyne, but good grief. Started okay around about match day 8, which is where I think Kevin De Bruyne took over, and then he's taken them down quite severely. Their squad surely wasn't that bad. No, they were predicted 8th. Oh dear. Oh, Kevin. But let's move on to Kenan Yildiz, because I'm very interested to see if he's actually still at Bologna. He is emphatically not. He's earning the most money, so in a way, That's, I guess, a good thing. But his value is kind of minimal there, and he's 29 years old. It seems unlikely that he's going to be returning to the big leagues of European football, given that he seems to have gone and cashed in extremely early. This is kind of what I was concerned about. 7 starts, 20 substitute appearances, and did score 3 times for them in Serie A. Unfortunately, it seems in the midst of a relegation season. We're a bad omen, it would seem. And then in the Serie B, he did actually start a lot of games for them, scored 7 goals, got 3 assists over the course of presumably the first half of the season, I'm guessing. It looks like he then moved to Al-Shabaab in January. If he'd just stayed at Bologna for the rest of the season, brought them back up, hopefully, I mean, he scored a lot of goals for them, maybe he could have done something in Serie A, but he's taken the money, £140,000 a week, he's got his big move, and in fairness to him, he's absolutely smashing it in Saudi Arabia. 24 goals in 30 games last season for them. They've almost gone opposite ways to each other, in that I actually thought that it was going to be Lemina that would be chasing the money, given that he already had those high wage expectations, and wouldn't just want to play for the game. But actually, he seems to have done exactly that and stayed with Lens through a mediocre period followed by absolute horrendousness. Whereas Yildiz has gone the complete opposite direction. He's taken that money, and even though he's only 29, I don't see him moving back to Europe for the rest of this say. Let's jump to 10 years into the future, where they'll both be 34 and probably starting to draw their careers to a close. Will he have moved clubs? Will Lemina have moved clubs? I suspect he will do, but I feel like he doesn't join Southampton. I reckon he joins Valencia. Apologies if my exuberancy has been sort of turned up to 11 since we've gone to the future. I find this sort of stuff extremely fascinating, and it's impossible to contain my excitement at times. So bear with me. 10 years after they made the moves, at this point, my impact is fairly minimal, but regardless, let's start with Noah Lemina. Oh my day. 50 caps for France. I just don't know if I think we might have actually done a good here. He's 33 years old. He's playing for, Nice now, but he actually moved to Nantes, so he stayed in France. I don't mind that. I actually really quite enjoy that for him. I feel like that, from a overall standpoint, is an extremely successful career thus far, as it does seem to be winding down. Still has okay natural fitness, so I suspect that he might still have a couple more years left in him. So, I mean, look at that. So in that summer, he moved to Nantes for £35 million. That's the dream. That's honestly what I was hoping would happen for him. Didn't expect it to be a Lens to Nantes move, if I'm honest. Now did a season at Nice for £2.5 million, just enjoying his football. A couple of goals, few assists, 3 Man of the Match awards as well. That, ironically, one of his best ever seasons. Still, really, really pleased for him there, particularly with the 50 France caps. I wonder if he's got any individual accolades too. Oh my God. Noah, you're welcome. He won the Coupe de France with Nantes in 2035, his first season at the club. Yeah, so editor Matt here, just editing this video, just noticed that it was a runner-up in the Coupe de France. He didn't win it, but he did win the league, so I guess there's that. But, I can't see an error like that and not correct it. And last year, he won the title with Nantes, 3 points over Lyon, of all people, but he was part of the title-winning Nantes side. I think, personally, that his old agent is going to struggle to beat that as far as a career goes. The one thing I do want to have a look at is to quickly check what his contract was like at Nantes when he went there and see how much money he was actually earning at the club. So actually, that's kind of fascinating. He actually took a slight wage cut in order to join Nantes at this point, when he had 19 caps for France. His value, though, was absolutely astronomical, and I do wonder if at some point in there, he possibly was linked with an enormous move away as well. But now, it's Kenan Yildiz. Did he come back to Europe? Let's find out. No, he did not. So he still plays for Al-Shabaab. 34 years old. He's been at the club nearly 9 years now. Now, to his credit, he's been playing football. His statistics for playing in the Saudi Arabian League are insane. Not sure why I said the word insane like that. Man is also collecting player traits like upgrades in a roguelite, so there's that. He certainly would have earned an enormous amount of cash over this period, but maybe the international acclaim just isn't there. He's been a fantastic player for Al-Shabaab, though. I'm still a bit disappointed that he didn't stick it out at Bologna a little bit longer, because did they come straight back up again? Actually, they came 10th that season, so I can sort of see why he was perhaps thinking of leaving. If they'd bounced back a bit quicker and were in the chance to get promoted, I think he probably would have stayed with them, but it looks like when he was smashing those goals in for them, they were just struggling in mid-table. But remarkably, Lemina has actually signed a 1-year extension at Nice and will continue to play for them. He's just carrying on. He's got another season in him. And Kenan Yildiz has also extended his career by another season. I don't know if he's going to quite get to 200 goals for Al-Shabaab, but it's certainly possible. There we go. Lemina is retiring at 35 years old. He's actually going to be 36 in a couple of weeks, but he's still had an illustrious career. Fair play to him. 50 caps for France, 8 goals. He's won league titles. He's won the Coupe de France. I think he's done a lot, basically. I don't know if he played much for Nice this year. In fact, no, he went out on loan to Shakhtar and played a little bit of time in Ukraine to finish off his career. That's kind of sick, actually. 317 appearances for Al-Shabaab over an 11-year period and 181 goals. He's great and all. I think that of the two, Lemina's definitely had the more illustrious career, which is interesting because Lemina actually had the lower PA of the two by a good 10 points. So that is kind of fascinating to see that Yildiz just didn't quite do it, but I think that's mostly our fault, to be honest. But now, the really interesting part. How do their careers compare to when we didn't interfere? Does Lemina stay at PSG for another 2-3 seasons till he's like 29 and then get a move? What happens? This is the fascinating part. Let's jump in. I know that we've already lost on the Kenan Yildiz one, surely. Huddersfield Town. We don't know if this is a bad move for him, but what I will say is he's got 0 caps for France. That alone makes me think that we've done the right thing with the transfer that we forced him to make, basically. He got 50 caps for France under our tutelage, and he got none under his current agent. So I honestly feel like that's almost the winner by itself. But let's just have a little look at his actual career history so far. He's 34 years old. He's still got another year left on his deal at Huddersfield, so we'll just sort of work that out in a second. Oh my giddy aunt. So he went on loan to Monaco for a season, and did play 21 matches for them. But again, only 6 starts. He just could not buy a start. And then eventually moved to Monaco on a transfer. £61,000 he moved to Monaco for. That's a bargain for them, by the way. Did play 17 games, then started to get a bit more game time, but even so, still only 10 games there. Finally broke in here, and he got 4 consecutively good seasons there for Monaco. In fact, this one here was fantastic for them. 12 assists for Monaco, which is not bad. I don't know what kind of wages he would have been on there. Found a move to Lille for £9 million, but again, only the 1 start for Lille during that season, and then none the following year. Pretty much a super sub. And now playing for Huddersfield Town in the Championship for 500 grand, earning £10,000 a week. He's had an okay time of it. He's at least playing. Unless he's earned moon money and won loads of stuff at Monaco and Lille, I feel like we did the right thing. But it's between sort of here when he joined, 2031 and 2037. So 9th. Their best season was easily that 3rd place there, which I think is that season where he really broke out. But then, honestly, they're a sort of mid-table sort of side. And when he actually left the club, they were 13th in the league. Just quickly dipped. And you can see, actually, as well, his contract at Monaco. £45,000 a week. So not only did we get him to get 50 caps for France, win a title, win a cup, and he was earning nearly double the kind of money that he was on when he did move to Monaco, which is exactly what I was expecting might happen, that he just wouldn't be able to get that kind of same oomph in his wages by being sort of essentially an outcast from PSG. And you'll see that, yes, he actually did retire at 36 after playing for Huddersfield for a couple of seasons. On balance, particularly as he didn't even earn any more money while playing for Monaco and Lille, that we definitely got a win in that column. The question is, there's no way we've done well with Yildiz, surely. Unless it's just a case of he just doesn't really play a lot in his entire career, and maybe we'll get the win just because he got a lot of playing time at Al-Shabaab, perhaps. And this is no disrespect to the Saudi League. Obviously, he's a legend there. It's just that you'd think with a player of that kind of quality that he could have maybe given it a go in Europe a little bit longer. Yeah, no, I think I am definitely going to look like a fool. Didn't get any Germany caps in this save either. Or Turkey caps. So from Juventus, he finally got a loan to Hamburg and did actually play. Eventually moved to Villarreal on a free transfer. Didn't play for them particularly. Did play a little bit. Oh no, 1 start. Oh God, buddy. It really took him a long while to get going, didn't it? 2 starts for them there. After the free transfer, he barely played. Finally got himself a move, this time to Nice, once again in the French league. 32 starts, 14 goals for him in the top flight. So he'd have actually been playing against Noah Lemina. He's moved to Nice, and he has played a decent number of games for them in the top flight of France. And I feel like that part of his career definitely is more esteemed, perhaps. He scored a lot less goals, didn't really get any more international acclaim. Did he win anything with Nice? This is an interesting one. I'll have to really get you guys to make the judgment on that one, because it appears he really didn't even get started actually regularly playing until he was like 29 years old, which is mental, by the way. Man has actually won two Coupe de France with Nice in 3 seasons. 3rd, 4th, 6th, a 2nd in there as well. They were regularly challenging towards the very upper echelons of the league. Not winning any league titles, but I don't know, they might have run PSG fairly close, or they could have lost it by 25 points that season. We just don't know. Yeah, it was still a good distance away from PSG, but he was still a part of a really, really strong Nice side, and 2 Coupe de France wins is fairly stable. I think Lemina, I can very much say that we did the right thing. With this one, I think the obvious mistake really was just that we moved into a club where he just wasn't going to get that football straight off the bat. And I think that's something to focus on if we do another one of these, is to make sure they're getting first team football straight away. So they'll want to stay for a few seasons and they can really start to propel their career. But you learn as you go. It's my first time as an agent. Give me a break here. I'm learning my trade. I've not yet earned my private island. Before we go, I thought I'd highlight a couple of mad things I found just looking through the database. Fulham in the Champions League. This absolute domination from Atletico. 97 points, followed by 99, followed by 104 points in La Liga. They lost 2 games in 3 years. I hope this has been fun for you. I've really, really enjoyed making this, and I would like to make another one, but only if that's what you guys want. Obviously, find another 2 couple of players that could do with our services and try to turn them into world beaters. I'm still sorry, Kenan. I feel like we've failed you a little bit there. We could have done better for you, buddy. But if you enjoyed it, drop a like on the video. That'd be fantastic. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Happy career resurrection in inning.